Welcome to Connected Conversations. I am Elena Petrova, founder and CEO of Ad Astra Inc. Tune in as we share inspiring stories, connect with local heroes, and discover solutions that uplift us.
We are, as much as we like to think of ourselves as logical creatures, we're emotional first. There's a ton of research behind this. Yeah. We actually are, we feel first, and then we think and act. We don't think first and then feel and act. No matter how, I'm telling you, for any engineers that are watching this, yep, you're a feeler who thinks. Sorry. It's true.
Welcome to Connected Conversations. And we are back to Washington, D.C., Dupont Circle, with the local leader. Mm-hmm. A local leader who is going to be talking to us today about leadership, communication, and the uncertainty. We are going to be talking about psychology of the next. So Jordana Cole, she came to us from Virginia. How was the drive?
You know, driving to DC is always an adventure, but it's actually, I really like coming in because it's been a long time since I've been in the DuPont area, and I have a lot of memories from being an undergraduate student nearby, and one of my favorite bookstores is right around the corner, so it was very nostalgic through the traffic.
It's a nice area, right?
Yes.
So we both went to JW.
Yeah.
Yeah, good school.
Indeed.
So, okay, say a few words. What do you do now? What projects you're working on? And I have to say, if you have not seen the TED Talk that Jordana did, you absolutely should, because it's a great combination of, I would say, being a comedian and talking about some serious stuff. Yes. And it's all on the stage that you combine it together. Say a few words about the talk. How did you come to it, and how did you put it together?
Yeah, thank you so much. The talk for me is really the combination of everything I'm about, everything I've done professionally, personally, and academically, certainly over the last decade, but really across my whole professional and I'd say even personal life from when I was younger, when I was in high school. So to me, it's really a culmination of everything I've learned, everything I do, bring it forward to people. So what I'm about, my brand is Ignited. I call myself an igniter. I'm somebody who creates sparks that spark transformative habits and behaviors to help leaders and teams be better. And I spark these changes that don't just stick with people, they spread. And I like to joke that I'm kind of a lot of different people all in one. You put me in a blender and you get me. So I'm a leader myself. I spent the first part of my career actually leading teams before moving into leadership development. So I have that business, that real world experience and expertise as a leader across different industries. Then I'm kind of a scholar and a little bit of an academic nerd. So I got my master's in applied positive psychology at UPenn. And my focus has been on what enables people to thrive at work. What are the conditions in cultures? What are the conditions in leaders that create that win-win where we thrive as individuals and the business thrives too, because we spend more time at work than anywhere else. Sure. And then on the side, I'm a little bit of a creative. So I spent more than a decade, my Friday and Saturday nights, on an improv stage in Arlington, Virginia, making up things on the spot for shows for audiences with other people besides me and whatever the audience brought for a given evening. So I kind of put all these things into a blender, and that was my TED Talk. And I realized that a lot of things that I've learned and a lot of the things that I've studied are actually what have made me a better leader. So when I got my master's degree a decade ago, I studied, what is it about improv? Like, what did improv equip me with to help me lead? And how do I use that to help other people lead better, whether they're leading themselves, whether they're leading teams, communities, families, what have you. And that was my master's thesis. And I did a ton of research about what is it that improv is teaching us to communicate better, to collaborate better, and to be more creative on the fly. And 10 years later, realizing we're in an age where life is uncertain, the world is uncertain, How could I bring those lessons forward to help all of us lead ourselves and others better through whatever comes next? So that's kind of how it all came to be. My whole life story, basically.
Yeah, and it's so timely, I would say. We started 2025, and I went to multiple events across the country, and almost every single conversation started. We are building the next.
Yeah.
We are building the next. And it was on East Coast in New York, and then it was in Silicon Valley. We are building the next.
Yeah.
And all that anxiety of 2025, now we are 2026.
Yeah.
And it didn't slow down. I would say it's accelerating. And I'm looking at multiple conversations in science and technology, and now we are saying that we have time until 2030, and 2030 is going to be a different world. It's a deal breaker. If you have time to adapt, to change, to make money, do it now until 2030 or else. No pressure.
No, none whatsoever.
And
or
then-
else.
Right. And then, of course, when I came across your profile on LinkedIn and then your talk, I'm like, oh my God, that's the conversation we need to have here, right?
Yeah.
And so let's go back to your to what you were just sharing with us about first improv.
Yeah.
I truly believe, and I tried it myself, but I didn't go as much as you go. It does change how we communicate.
Yes.
And you do become very aware of your team,
Yes.
how you pass the message.
Yes.
And it really does help with creativity.
Yes.
So let's start with communication, because this podcast is about communication. How did it help you in your communication skills
Yes.
with your teams?
Yes. And communication is one of my favorite topics because
Right.
I think at the end of the day, that's what leadership is actually about.
Mm-hmm.
It's about communication. It's about relationships. That's what interpersonal dynamics are. So a lot of the struggles, even though our roles are different, our industries are different, the things we struggle with as leaders come down to communication challenges, like communication's at the core. So when I studied in the psychology of well-being, organizations, leadership, and what I unpacked in improvisation is that it teaches you 3 core skills when you get into it. One, I call interpersonal mindfulness. So mindfulness often gets equated with meditation. You know, you're closing your eyes, you're seeing your thoughts, you're letting it pass. And what it really is about being present non-judgmentally. What improv trains you to do is to be present non-judgmentally with another person. It's not inside. It's between you and me. Because if I'm not present with you, we're not in the scene together. The scene is going to go past me. You have to be focused. You can't be up here. You can't be thinking about your shopping list or what's happening tomorrow or where you want the conversation to go. You have to be completely present with the other person and what you are creating in that moment. And that, I think, is grounding when it comes to communication, because so much communication struggles happen when we're not present with that other person, when we're not creating that we space. That's when we interpret things differently, we set the wrong expectations, etc. So that's the first thing that improv teaches you.
It's like almost like, because usually in real life, we think what we will reply
Yes.
instead of listening. Isn't that in improv we have to repeat the message, right? That the other person is saying. Or at least that was the lesson that I took. Like I said, I took only a couple.
Yeah, you're actually, so you're bringing up a couple of different things, and you're right. So there's a ton of research that shows we only listen to about a quarter or a third of what's said to us, because we listen to reply, we listen to interrupt, we listen to advance. We don't actually listen to understand. So you're talking about an improv game, which I love bringing into leadership development work, where it's a game where, to your point, you have to repeat either the last letter or the last word that somebody else said before you start your next sentence. And the reason that's a really great improv game, especially for people who are learning improvisation, is because it's training your brain to listen the whole way through, something that we really, really struggle with doing. And the core principle of improv is it's called yes and. So basically what yes and stands for is accepting what the other person gives you as a gift, as the world that they're creating, and then building on it. You don't negate it, you don't turn it into something completely different. Yep, what you've given me is an offer, what you've given me is a gift, and we're going to build on that together, whether I like it or not. And that was another skill that I learned through my research that improv teaches you. There's a concept called, and I'm going to get super nerdy right now, active constructive responding. Mm-hmm. And the research shows around positive relationships. And at the end of the day, why do we communicate? To create strong relationships and to create results around shared goals, plain and simple. So the research around positive relationships shows two things. One, that ultimately people want to be heard, understood, and validated. Those are core concepts of quality relationships. And two, we strengthen our relationships when we accelerate other people's ideas and good news more than when we sympathize with their suffering. So this idea of yes and is actually a form of teaching you how to actively, constructively respond. You are sharing something with me and I'm building on that. Now, what does that look like in leadership? It could be asking you to tell me more about your idea. It could be asking a good question to go a little bit deeper. It could be elevating your suggestion with additional layers to it as a brainstorm.
And
well done.
Yes, and
well done.
Right. And how can we adapt this to our conversation today, psychology of next?
Yeah.
Because I feel that today the tension is so high in the office or even the people who are working from home, because there are a lot of us who are working from home, and everybody has this feel of uncertainty. Am I going to have a job tomorrow? We are in DC, right? Yeah. Can you imagine how many of us hear that? Am I going to have a job tomorrow? Yeah. Am I going to have a contract tomorrow? Yeah. Is it going to be replaced by AI? Yeah. Is it going to be just cut off by other reasons? So uncertainty is high. Yes. A lot of us related to technology one way or another. So how do we as leaders communicate? Maybe there are certain language techniques that we as leaders could integrate to for clarity or for just make it simple, clean, and just bring the attention down, but not to be misleading. Because you do not want to mislead people. You want to have the trust. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Look, it is so hard to be a leader right now. I feel like it is harder every single day. And we need good leaders exactly for that reason, to help recalibrate, reset expectations, and bring the temperature down. And I think one of the things that I love about working with leaders so much, and one of the hardest things in working with leaders, is that you're navigating that yourself while you're also trying to help your team through that. So first, I think it's about your mindset as a leader and recognizing that, this is real. Things are uncertain. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Anything can happen. The truth is, though, that's been the case all the time. Nothing is ever certain day to day. It's just that we're so bombarded by rapid pace of change through technology, some pretty drastic stuff happening in the economy, in the global environment, that it's in our face, I think, a lot more, and we feel it in a bigger and a deeper way than maybe we did when it's just that I don't know what I'm going to have for dinner, or I don't know if there's going to be traffic on my route, or I'm going to have a blown tire, or if I'm going to wake up feeling sick. One of the things I talk about in my talk is that every single one of us is improvisers. No one is walking into their day with a script or an instruction manual telling them what to do. It's actually core to who we are as individuals. And one of the coolest things about being a human is that, if nothing else, We figure out how to adapt and respond to the situation that we're in. So I think it starts with the mindset of you as a leader to help ground yourself and realizing, yes, uncertainty is real, and uncertainty has always been real. And I never know what's going to happen next, but what I can do is focus on what's in my control in this moment, the strengths and skills that I have to adapt and react to whatever is going on around me. Start with grounding yourself and then anchor your team. So when you see your team spiraling out of control, I think there's a couple things that you can do to create a little comfort and a space where people can refocus on what they can do. First off, it's not about solving for the situation. We can't solve, and it's not about, to your point, overpromising. So acknowledging the reality that we're in. Yes, things are really uncertain right now. I can't promise that X, Y, and Z is going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. But what do we know? We know that, we have this to accomplish today. We know that these people are counting on us. We know that we're really great at X, Y, and Z. How can we focus on that today and make that a dialogue? I think the other thing that leaders can do is normalize what they're hearing from their people. We're in leadership because we like to fix problems and we like to help. And in moments like this, the best thing you can do is just validate and sit with what's going on, not try and fix it. So when somebody comes to you and you sense that they're really nervous about uncertainty or they're really frustrated or afraid, even just saying, it sounds like you're really frustrated, or it sounds like you're really scared right now about X, Y, and Z. Is that right? And when the person responds with a, yes, I am, I wish I could make that better. I can't. What else could help you right now? And continue doing that until you get to something that could actually help that individual. And by the way, this works in personal life too. It's not just at work. So reframing and refocusing on what's in our control while also validating what people are feeling and experiencing. Just the act of doing that, rather than trying to defend against it or tell them all the reasons that they should feel a certain way, actually help to lower the temperature.
It's hard so because like you mentioned, that leaders end up in that seat for problem solving.
Yes.
So you constantly looking to solve the problem, and that at some point, like, okay, that cannot be solved, right? And you're right. It's important to remind yourself that not all problems are going to be solved here.
Yeah, and I think that word "here" is important. All problems are not to be solved here, right now, or my problems to solve. We can't solve how somebody else feels about something, but we can create the conditions where they feel heard. We can create the conditions where we help anchor them back to what's in their control, or provide an element, even if it's a small space, of safety for them in that moment when a lot of what's going on might feel unsafe around them. That we can focus on, that we can do. But I can't change how you feel about something. I can't solve that for you. I can't solve what's going to happen 10, 15 years from now. But I can focus on what are the strengths that I have on my disposal. What are the things that I can really get done today? How do we rescope the goals to what's actually achievable and relevant? And yeah, it's hard. And if you think about, though, a lot of the problems that we solve at Leaders, they don't get solved in a single day. The results and outcomes that we create, they don't happen in a single day. They happen in a lot of decisions and a lot of intentions and a lot of actions that wind up becoming, over time, the results and outcomes that we see. So it's really focusing on, like, what's the most important, or what's the next best thing I can do right now that's going to help potentially result in a positive outcome, even if I don't know for certainty that that will occur.
Do you think that the level of uncertainty that we're experiencing right now anywhere higher than ever? And like, because sometimes I look at it and I'm thinking that our generation just talks about that we have this, we have pandemic, we just had this recession, and now there is AI. But then I start thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? There's a my grandparents went through the Second World War, and there was a sort of technology that was implementing there. Yeah, it was not AI, but it probably affected them in a certain way. And then you go in the beginning of the century. It was not coronavirus, but it was that flu. Remember
the Spanish flu.
Spanish flu. So we want to think that the level of uncertainty that we have, but the electricity that came around, that it was First and Second World War with just a little interval. So yes, we are going through what we are going right now with the level of uncertainty, but humanity has been through a lot. And to your point, we adapted.
Yeah. You're spot on. I mean, every generation has that kind of uncertainty that is just defining of that generation. We all have those moments. I mean, go back to the Industrial Revolution. You can go back even further than that. I think what's different now is it's in our face all the time, because media is 24/7 in a way it really hasn't been before, because our attention spans are shrinking, because our feeds are getting flooded with things that are meant to kind of hijack our threat responses. It's hard for us to we're addicted to screens, right? It's hard for us to kind of take the time to sit with the things that bring us out of the fear of the uncertainty, like our friends, like our communities, like our families, like our hobbies, because it's very easy for that to get distracted by the doom scrolling. So I think that's one of the things that's really different than other times where, yeah, you're right. The level of uncertainty, we have faced this and in fact worse before. And I think every generation kind of has their own existential moments where they think that they're faced with annihilation, depending on what's going on in the world or the threats that are really real. What was different is that they weren't bombarded with reminders of that 24/7 outside of maybe their own imaginations or conversations. So that makes things feel heavier, bigger, and different, and it makes things feel like they're faster. I do think also where we are, there's been a lot on top of each other, and because of the pace of life and work and media and everything, technology, we haven't been able to kind of reset. It's felt like one thing after another. I mean, we're still kind of dealing with the impacts of the pandemic. And then we had to also think about AI. And then we also have to think about everything else, going on in the economy, everything else going on in the global sphere. So it does feel like it's happening all at once. A friend of mine that I do leadership work with shared this quote with me, and I wish I knew who it was from, and I don't. But if I did, I would give them credit. And it was it's something like, change has never happened as fast as it's happening now, and it will never be as slow again.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So interesting. It's profound.
Yeah. And it's true. It's true. I mean, we are changing all the time.
Yeah, and it comes back to communication again, because this change that we just talked about, it's consistent communication non-stop, right?
Yeah.
They just mentioned it's social media, it's television, it's phone.
Yeah.
Back to social media, you wake up in the morning, you go back, and during the day, there are like so many events that can fly through. Fast. And slow. And we process, of course, different. You just mentioned that our attention span changed. So back to technology, because that's your another area of expertise. How it can, we talk a lot about how it's damaging.
Yeah.
But how it can improve? Is there any way, in your opinion, that AI technology can improve our communication?
Absolutely. I think there are a couple things. It's about, how do you leverage AI less as a replacement and more as an augmentation? How do you think of it as a partnership? I actually got into a really interesting conversation with somebody from my graduate school community online, and he was posting about how AI is really good at giving positive feedback. Like, it's always telling you, you're great, or great idea, and this and that. And what I actually think AI is teaching us to do is exactly the thing that I mentioned a little while ago, which is, did I hear you correctly? I think I got X, Y, and Z. Is that right? And then you can say, yes, it is. Let's build on that. Or you say no. And it says, okay, can you clarify for me? And I joke that if I were to teach leaders one skill, it would be that. Acknowledge what you heard and ask, was it right? Reframe it, ask, was it right? And if it's yes, build on it. And if it's no, recalibrate. So I think actually if we pay attention to how AI communicates with us, because look, it's being trained by humans and it's being trained by human behavior. That's clearly what people want and need. So you can learn to communicate better and be a better leader and be a better person if you're noticing some of the things that it's doing well, not just the things that it's not doing well. The other thing about AI is about using it smartly. AI doesn't get tired, it doesn't get distracted, but it only has kind of the inputs that you give it. So understanding the context of, especially when you're using it to better understand yourself, there are things that it can do as a starting point. So, I mean, it's been tremendous. I've been using it as a means to create assessments, to give people tools that they wouldn't have had before to better understand themselves. I've used it to create coaches for people. And as a human coach, I've trained it to be ethical and compliant with coaching standards. And that's because not everybody has access to a human coach, either based on cost factors or based on time zone factors. So to be able to have that in your pocket that you can utilize to help you get better understanding of yourself, help you create plans to put what you're learning into practice, help to create accountability, could actually be a wonderful thing because it helps you understand yourself and others better, and then helps take the mental load of, okay, how do I translate what I know into action in a way that can truly be a partnership with you? But it can't be a replacement for your thinking, because that plan that it creates for you, there might be pieces of it that don't work because it's not you. And I think the danger is also of using AI as your form of all communication and replacing human to human communication with it. And that is such an important thing because there's so much we communicate as people beyond the words we use. In our body language, in our
important
energy,
right,
in our tone. And AI can't translate that. So AI sees what we give it on the surface, and it's very good at maybe analyzing some themes and things that we don't see by looking at patterns. But it can't actually get under the surface and do that human intuition that we can do. And I think that's the sweet spot. If you're a leader thinking about how do I leverage AI to make myself not only better, but irreplaceable as a leader, leverage it to teach you how to have better conversations, how to react and respond, how to be present. But then lean on your human intuition and test that out in conversations and notice what's being unsaid. Call that out in the moment. Look at ways that you can bring different things and different people together in collaborative ways that maybe they wouldn't normally get together, so that they can bring those ideas together and see what creative potential comes from that. That's how you augment yourself in a way that leverages AI to your advantage, but still enhances the human communication skills that it can't replace right now.
Interesting. And I was listening to you and I was thinking that the best way to become better is once you start knowing yourself, right? Because again, like sometimes you communicate to somebody and then all of a sudden you overreact, but before you overreact, you probably should know that's when that tingling and like the blood start coming to your
Yes.
to your head or your face, and that's when you know that you're about to overreact. And the more you know yourself, the better your communication with other people, because again, you can't really control others before you control yourself. So I was listening to you and I was thinking that for leadership skills, going deeper
Yes.
into your personal knowledge would be incredibly helpful. And so do you create those AI agents yourself?
Yeah.
Wow, tell me, how do you do it?
A lot of work. Yeah. And I've partnered with people who have technical expertise on the AI side to train. But it's a lot of iteration. It kind of starts with what creating those prompts, but then testing it, not taking it face value, see what's working, what's not working, and then tweaking it. And it's an evolving and iterative process, kind of like human to human brainstorming is when it's done really, really well. And I'm playing with things all the time. Like literally, I was right before I came here, I was actually playing around with a different assessment to help people understand what gets in the way of their creativity, or to help people understand what their level of healthiness is in their sense of self right now and what's in the way of that. So part of that, I have to have some level of expertise and resources that I can port into it, and some strengths that I could bring to it and interact with it. But then I try it out. I test it. I see what's working. I see what's not. And we kind of build it together. And then I bring it to other people to have them test it and give feedback and see what's working and see what's not, because I'm only one person. And it's a constant evolution. It's never done. But there was something that, you also bring up about this idea of knowing yourself. And I actually think that's where AI is really powerful, to the point that you mentioned. We are, as much as we like to think of ourselves as logical creatures, we're emotional first. There's a ton of research behind this. Yeah. We actually are, we feel first, and then we think and act. We don't think first and then feel and act. No matter how, I'm telling you, for any engineers that are watching this, you're a feeler who thinks. Sorry. It's true. So when we are in an emotional state, our brains get hijacked. It's really hard for us to kind of recognize what's going on until after the fact. And if we could prevent it on our own, nobody would have relationship challenges, right? What AI can help us do is explore ourselves, where we can say after the fact, hey, I had this reaction to this and I don't know why. Can you help me figure it out? And you can actually engage. And can you help me notice when this might, what are some triggers that might cause this to come up in the future? Or you brought up, my face feels flushed, or maybe my shoulders get tense. What are some of the things that I might notice that it's happening before the emotional temperature is too hot, that I can pay attention to and reflect on myself to bring it down? And what might be some techniques to do that? That's a conversation that you could have with AI, and it's a non-judgmental, neutral sounding board, just literally there with information, helping you process what's there. Actually putting that into practice is up to you.
And especially if it's the agent that created on the knowledge of your your body, your communication skills, your the techniques that you use for your own purposes. So you're basically your own agent.
Yeah, I think that will be the next evolution of AI. And I one of the things that I'll caution about that is it's still getting inputs from us. Right. And how we see ourselves, oftentimes we're not the clearest. I do a lot of work with people and focusing on their strengths. As humans, we tend to be biased towards the negative. It's how we've been built. It's a survival mechanism. And we miss out on a lot of what makes us great, especially in organizations. We focus on, how do I fix this weakness? How do I fix this weakness? And in fact, more of our potential comes from, what are the strengths I bring to the table and how do I activate that more? That's also true if people are uncertain for the future of jobs. Focus on what are the strengths, what are, not the technical skills, but what are the strengths that are under the covers of that could actually be applied in different ways. So when thinking about strengths, one of the things that's interesting is when something's really natural to us, we take it for granted. We think, oh, I'm good at this, everybody else must be. Or, yeah, it's just a thing I do. Yet those are the things that other people see in us and go, wow, it is amazing that you can do X, Y, and Z. Or did you know you're really great at this right here? Because it isn't natural to everyone. So when we're working with AI, if we are creating these types of agents to help us understand ourselves better, one, our story isn't the whole story. Other people see things about us that we don't see. So how can we be bringing in those inputs from others who know us well and interact with us in various domains into the models that we're building, into the agents that we're building, both at the outset, but then also in an ongoing basis, because we also evolve as human beings. So if you're basing your agent, what you created from day one, depending on what's going on in your life, in your environment, how you've been adapting and growing, that person that you built the agent on might not be the same person 6 months from now. So it does need that recalibration. And then again, there's still a lot about ourselves that AI doesn't see. It doesn't pick up on the energy, the tone, the emotion, the body language that another human being can. And that's where interacting with other humans is so, so important, especially as AI still sees itself as something to make you happy. Wanting to agree with somebody or making them happy all the time isn't necessarily what helps them grow.
Yes, precisely. And you brought a very interesting point here too, because we do want to make sure that within the organization or with ourselves, we concentrate on growing our strengths rather than constantly fixing our weaknesses.
Yeah.
It's there, okay, nobody is perfect.
Yeah.
It's there, okay, weakness. Live with this, but here is the strength, but because that strength is something that is going to move our forward. The same with communication, right?
Yes.
I really loved your talk when you started talking about that. This is what I'm good at.
Yeah.
I'm good at, and then you started talking how you express yourself with the energy.
Yeah.
And everybody in the in the room, people started laughing because you started moving around the stage, and that is very true, because I wouldn't do the same. I would be doing something different. But when I was younger, I would probably try to copy you, because like, oh, she's so cool, she's doing this, like she's doing those techniques. But it's so important, again, knowing who you are, knowing your strengths, and instead of copying somebody else, doing your own thing. Because that's where it's going to propel you, right? Communication, leadership, technical knowledge.
I see that so much with communication, like especially when leaders are doing a presentation or they're trying to set a vision. They look to other people who are role models or exemplars, and they go, oh, I need to be like that person. And then they try to, and then the message doesn't land. Because we can feel when something's inauthentic. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing happening with AI right now, is it's so easy to create content, but it very clearly feels AI. So the term, AI slop is happening. We have good radar for what's genuine and what's inauthentic. And I do believe that kind of that next phase is, and the people who are really going to position themselves as leaders are those who find a way with AI to help them, but their message is still theirs, and they're still being authentic to who they are and what they're delivering and creating content that's true to them. It's also why, we can watch somebody speak about something that they're passionate about, that we have zero interest in whatsoever, and we're compelled. Because there's something really inspiring when somebody is speaking to something that's really true to them. And when I actually do some work sometimes with organizations on presentations and on communication as a leader. And while so much communication practice focuses on the message, we very rarely focus on who you are as a communicator. And one of the things I love to do is help people uncover, what are the strengths that I naturally bring to the table as a communicator? For me, it's my energy, but for somebody else, it might be that they just love to learn and they have so many different facts. For somebody else, it might be the design aesthetic and being able to do that. Others, it might be story. What actually is natural to you? Thinking about the communications that have landed the most. What did you do well? And what did people say to you about it afterwards? Even asking people in your circles, what do you think I do really well as a communicator? Or the stories or messages I've shared, what's made them powerful? For some, it might even be not saying anything, but just role modeling it. And that your communication through your actions and your behaviors rather than your words. And double down on that. Identify, who am I at my best when I'm communicating? What type of communication is actually true to me? And how do I bring that to the story more? For people who struggle with connecting with an audience where they communicate more from the lens of stats or facts, one of the things I tell them to think about is, how can you connect your stats and facts to something real world, to a story that is actually something you care about or something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
So for instance, I worked with a manufacturing team a few years ago, and they were located in the Dallas, Texas area, and they were every day kind of giving out stats, the leaders to their team, about how many t-shirts that they produced in a given day. And they were doing it based on numbers. That doesn't mean necessarily anything to anybody, and that might be inspiring to some, but for other people, it might not be. So we talked about, okay, what's something that's relevant to your area that people can actually resonate with and would care about? Big sports town. Dallas is a big sports town. So we talked about the football stadium and how many seats there are in the football stadium. And they changed the language to, instead of we printed X number of shirts today, we printed enough shirts today to clothe every single person who comes into that stadium in a sold out crowd for the remainder of the season.
Wow.
See,
Wow.
even you,
Yeah,
right?
Like, so it's different, right?
Yeah. And like, so you said, wow, as somebody who wasn't even on that team, not even in Dallas, tell me, like, why does that resonate more with you than the number?
Because it's human, right?
Yes.
You bring the human factor into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. It's human, and it connects back to something that's relevant to them in their sphere that they care about. And
it's a human story, right?
Human.
It's just like, I was reading this book that talks about debating, and it's a professor from I remember Oxford, I think, Oxford to Cambridge, and he's talking about the fact that when you start debating, you have to do your homework. You need to he calls it receipts. Come with your
receipts.
Bring your receipts, but never forget the human factor, feelings and emotions. And he was talking about how many times, no matter how many numbers, facts, receipts you're going to bring, but you're going to lose or win the argument when people are going to be making the final decision on their feelings and emotions. Because if you are not going to bring your personal story prior, or touch their personal story prior to bringing your receipts, as he calls it, which means numbers and statistics, it means nothing if it's not connected to their feelings, lives, story that it's connected to. And then he talks about how you can build that connection, right? Yeah, he was talking about the war when Russians invaded Ukraine. He's saying that you can say Russia invaded Ukraine, and then you can say the year, the place, or you can say Russians started bombarding in the city the children were dying, the blah blah blah. Like, the more of certain language you are going to bring, the more people are going to touch. And then he also was talking about know your audience. If Russians are going to be using sitting in the room, use this language. If Ukrainians are going to be sitting in the room, use this language. You're talking about exactly the same event, but the way that you're going to be using the language is going to be affecting people differently. So it's just so interesting because you will use. So basically, he was talking about the same numbers. Numbers do not change. You're not misleading anybody because the numbers are exactly the same. The dates are exactly the same. Geographical location is exactly the same. But how you're connecting to people is different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Context and nuance matters.
Right.
In communication, period. And we, the thing that's been true of us throughout our whole history
They're humans, as you said.
Yeah.
And you cannot take emotions and feelings out of it.
No. Our entire civilization's been built on stories. Before we were, writing, we were telling stories. The earliest form of storytelling is cave paintings. They weren't numbers.
Right.
They were pictures. They were telling the story that we have been here. They were telling the story of what we believe in. They were telling the story of what has happened. They're telling the story of the animals and the environment. And then storytelling is ingrained in everything from fables to religion to ancestry. That's how we communicate lineage. Even in organizations, telling the stories of our values, telling the stories of our customers, telling the stories of our employees. It's stories. So, I guess one skill I'd say for leaders, like to hone your communication, is that listening to understand, validating, confirming, and responding. Second is storytelling. And going back to like the AI, human merge, you can leverage AI to help you think about like what are the bones of a good story, or to help me craft and hone my story to be a little bit more compelling. But if you ask AI to create a script for you of a story, it's not going to land because it's not authentic to you. So you have to connect it, to your point, both what you care about and also what your audience cares about. And that's where the nuance of being human and the human intuition and the human interpretation really, really matters. And the words we use and the context we use makes a really big difference. And, I was struck by, as you were talking about that story, you kind of started with, numbers, and then using language about people and even the action verbs. And then what if you add elements more where you bring in names, you bring in pictures, and suddenly it makes it real. You have characters, you have personality. That's a way to get people to connect and care. And I think this is something where leaders often struggle in setting kind of strategic vision for their organizations, is we focus on the outputs that this is going to create. We're making this change because of X, Y, and Z numbers. But that's not how the individual thinks. If you were to craft that strategy and put the story of a person in the middle, how does that look different? Create a storybook of an employee who's starting with you today. And, because of those outcomes, what changes for them in their life and day to day? How does it become better? Create that narrative.
Interesting.
Same with the customer. Create that narrative for them. And we don't often do that. We don't kind of get down to the story level. And to your point, you have to understand your audience. You have to understand their context. It's amazing how many people try and fight with each other on social media just by, sharing different articles of facts that prove their points. When has that ever worked for anybody? Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, yep, you've shared that resource with me with that fact. I've suddenly changed my mind. No, we entrench more. Do you know what changes people's minds? Engaging in conversation, but not telling them your point of view, asking them about theirs. Tell me more about, where that belief came from. Why is that so important to you? Okay, it sounds like X, Y, and Z. Is that the case? Yeah, okay. Help me understand how this thing over here connects back to that. Or I'm going to share a story with you of how this thing that I'm talking about actually connects back to that. Or maybe it's not as threatening as you think it is, but that comes from connection. And I think that's the difference. Like AI, we can communicate with AI, but can we really connect with AI? Not right now. I mean, who knows one day, but connection to me is still a very human thing. And there's awesome research by someone by the name of Jane Dutton, and she studies high quality connections. And there are 4 pathways to high quality connections: trust, mutual respect, active engagement and enablement, and play.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, and play.
And play.
At the end of the day, nothing can be done without fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And stories let us have a little bit of fun.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to people memorize things better through the stories, right? That's definitely, like, if you want to introduce data, tell the story first, then
Yes.
drop the data, finish with the story, right?
Yep. Exactly. And the story, to your point, has to be relevant
Right.
to the context, the culture, the people that you're in. That's something that I'm constantly navigating and learning. I work with global audiences. I certainly don't have experience with all the cultures of the people that I work with. And sometimes I share stories that don't land. And that's a really great learning for me. And instead of just taking that at face value, I try to understand more about the culture as to why that story didn't land, what could be different, so that I can adapt and change that moving forward. And I think that's something important, especially as leaders are responsible for more people, and particularly people across different cultures and across different countries even. It's not about just leading in the way that works for you. You need to understand the cultural nuances of the people that you're leading, because they are different than your own.
Well, thank you so much. I learned so much from you today.
This has been great.
If you're going to give us one technique, maybe to start using AI for better communication, what that would be? We cannot create agents like you.
No.
But something simple maybe.
Yeah. So first, I would encourage you to think about what's most important to you, because if it's not relevant to you, then it's not going to be useful to you. So if you are somebody who, start small, take one relationship that you want to improve your communication on. It starts with just going to AI and setting your goal. I would like to improve my communication with this person. Here are some of the challenges that I have faced. Here's what I'd like to get better at. And here's what I've noticed. So it does require some first kind of reflection from you to be able to kind of put that into AI, to share it with AI. And then ask AI, what might be some things that you're not aware of, or what might be some things that you could try that would help you. See what resonates with you as a starting step, and then see if you can leverage AI to either practice that or build in accountability for you on that. So maybe you're not building like a whole comprehensive agent, but you can take the ideas of that to do that. Because could I say to you, hey, you can ask AI to create a cheat sheet for you of top communication tips? Sure. But it's not your knowledge, it's about your use. And just as we're talking about here, context is important.
Right.
Relevance is important. The same is true as humans whenever we're trying to create a new habit. So see AI as a tool to help you build a habit that's meaningful for you now. And it starts with getting that awareness and then choosing something small based on the techniques that you're being offered to make a small change. And then I'd say after you try it, come back to the AI and reflect on, this is what worked, this is what didn't, this is where I struggled. Based on that, what would you encourage me to do next?
Interesting. I've never tried that.
I'd love to see you
I
try
will
it and tell me how it
definitely
goes.
I will let you know. I have several people I would like to have better relationships and better communication. You gave me a good idea.
Pick one. Start with one.
I will start with one, definitely. Well, Jordana, that was such a great conversation. Trust me, I would love to keep talking.
Me too.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you guys who continue join us on this podcast, Connected Conversations. I will ask you to continue giving us support. My team and I appreciate it very much. I do not do it by myself. I have a team in 20 different countries. Thank you again for spreading the word, giving us a like, giving us a comment. And if you have anything to comment or share to this incredible conversation that Jordana shared with us, please do so. That will help us growing our Ad Astra community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in into Connected Conversation. We are incredibly inspired by the potential of positive change within our communities. We invite you to be a part of our conversation, and we invite you to be a part of our journey. Please subscribe to our podcast to stay updated on our latest episodes. Your support is incredibly invaluable. It will help us to grow our community. We also encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments of each episode. Your feedback will help us to create even more meaningful conversations. We can inspire the change and connect with each other one conversation at a time.